Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jo Webb. I'm from the Virtual Energy System Programme at National Grid ESO, and I'll be presenting this afternoon with Rich Hampshire from CGI, who's Vice President of Digital Utilities. So I can see from the discussions that we were listening to in the previous session, everyone is well aware of the 2050 net zero goals. And I don't know about you, but it is something I think about every day. And the electricity system also has an ambition to be zero carbon by 2035. So that's only 10 years away. So a little bit of background to who National Grid ESO are. So we're the electricity system operator, which means we send the electricity round the grid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to where the electricity is needed when it's needed. So what does the future hold for the electricity system? The way we generate, manage and consume energy is changing. So we've gone from a small number of very large generators to hundreds of thousands of generators spread across GB. And it's far more complex and dynamic system. So obviously the amount of renewable energy coming onto the system is increasing rapidly, but it also relies on wind and sun. So it's harder to predict that energy generation. We've also got the change of shifting to demand side flexibility. So you might have heard of the DFS service, the Demand Flexibility Service, last winter that the ESO launched, which is when households could flex their energy usage to help balance the grid and to use lower carbon sources of energy. So some contributors to the system are digitalised, but the vast majority have very outdated processes and data systems. And we need a smart, flexible system with visibility of that data. So for forecasting and modelling and testing scenarios and making robust decisions. So it's a term I've heard several times in the previous session, but our mission as the virtual energy system is to digitalise the system and to create an ecosystem of digital twins. But the important thing is here that they need to be interconnected. So there's the two-way exchange of information between the digital twins. So, and that would be using a common data infrastructure. And the most important thing is that it needs to be the right data at the right time and securely shared. We recently announced the first 6 priority factors for the virtual energy system common framework, which is technical standards, aligning models of data sharing, and a governance framework for this decentralized system. So there are widespread benefits to adopting this interconnected digital twin design for the GB energy system. So consumers will be able to understand their carbon footprint and take part themselves in lowering that by shifting their usage of electricity and making their behind-the-meter assets available, which are EVs and solar. And obviously, there's the financial benefit of contributing back to the grid. The energy companies can benefit from being able to simulate scenarios and models and operational efficiencies and increased visibility of this data. And it will also open opportunities for innovators for new flexibility markets and modelling opportunities and to test their innovative ideas. And there's obviously the huge benefit to the balancing costs for the grid, because we'll be able to get more renewable energy connected to the grid, and it reduces the curtailment of that renewable energy. So we envisage that as it evolves and organisations create their own digital twins, they will be added to the virtual energy system and it will become self-sustaining. So one of the best ways to demonstrate a new system is to use use cases as examples of learning how the system will work and be applied and demonstrate the benefits. So the first use case we have is the Advanced Dispatch Optimizer, which is to create tools and capabilities for the engineers in the control room of ESO to make dispatch decisions using AI and machine learning to analyse the data from the supply and demand side assets. And then the second use case we have is CrowdFlex, which is a Ofgem strategic innovation funded project, and it's just been awarded its beta phase funding. And this is for modelling domestic flexibility. So through large scale trials with consumers, they will be asked to turn up their usage and turn down their usage of electricity and to also make their assets available to the grid. And then the aim is to build models of that flexibility so that flexibility can be a reliable grid management resource. Then the third use case currently working on is powering Wales renewably, which again is a CIF funded project from Ofgem, and we've just been awarded the alpha phase funding for that. And we're partnering with CGI and Welsh Government and the transmission and distribution networks there and renewable energy organisations to create a greener grid for Wales. And I'll hand over to Rich to talk about the detail of that project.
Thank you, Jo, and thanks for introducing Powering Wales Renewably in the context of the virtual energy system and the work that's going on there. But I'm not going to start with technology. Jo's already introduced some of the partners. As with all innovation projects, and ultimately we heard on the last panel the importance of outcomes and starting with the challenge, it's about having a series of collaborative partners that cover the end-to-end value chain. And that's what we've managed to create for Powering Wales Renewably. Jo, the ESO, are leading this project. We have the privilege of being the digital technology partner on it. But it also brings together the entire physical electricity system across Wales. 2 distribution businesses cover the whole of Wales, a transmission network operator, and also the operation of the system itself, which is the ESO's job. So we cover the whole electricity system. But crucially, we have the Welsh Government. They're also a part of the system. They set policies. They have got some really ambitious targets in terms of decarbonising Wales. And that in itself sets a genuine set of challenges on how to integrate more renewable generation, the flexible demand that Jo talked about. How do we engage that and operate a smart, flexible energy system? But also, what about the system users on the demand side, but also the developers, the investors that are going to integrate and build that new renewable generation? What's their role? What's their demand? And what this project has given us is the opportunity to engage with stakeholders from across the system and understand the different perspectives, the different wants. So to introduce you to Powering Wales, it starts with the Welsh Government's challenge of decarbonising Wales. Now, one of the biggest challenges is identifying locations where there might be capacity on the networks in order to achieve timely and economic connections of new renewables. And I'm sure most of you will have seen in the press, the National Infrastructure Commission's infrastructure assessment was published a couple of weeks ago. Nick Windsor's report prior to that on achieving faster connections. This all fits with that. How do you do that? Well, you need visibility of what's going on. You need to understand where there is capacity on the network and where there isn't. So what are we doing about achieving that? Well, we're bringing together a view of the network itself, the two distribution networks, the transmission network, how the network operates, how it operates as a system, but crucially, the view of how it's going to be used, the policy, the development plans of the Welsh Government, local area energy plans, if you've come across those, how do those get implemented? So it's bringing together a set of digital models of the physical network with other data to create a digital twin that will inform decisions. And that's the work we're doing at the moment. Now, as I said, there's a number of stakeholders here. Largely, and a lot of the work we did was developing and understanding the needs of different users. They can largely be grouped under four areas: the two distribution network operators, the transmission network operator, and what's required to transport electricity across the motorways of the grid, the ESO and the responsibility for keeping the lights on, operating the system. And we have the Welsh Government, but also those other system users. But within each of those four groupings, there's a set of users that have very different needs, from designing and building and maintaining the system, the assets, to operating the system in near real time, taking investment decisions. And then the Welsh Government, how do they achieve their policy of decarbonisation? How do they deliver for citizens? And as Joe said, thanks to Ofgem and the Strategic Innovation Fund, the SIF, which is an Ofgem initiative, but is also coordinated with Innovate UK and UKRI. We have to mention those. We've just successfully and are entering the alpha phase. So the deliverable for the alpha phase is to start integrating those existing digital models, exchanging data between those digital models to create a digital twin. And through the alpha phase, which runs for the next 6 months, we are building a demonstrator of how that can be achieved, based on delivering against one or two of the key use cases, the high value use cases that were identified through the discovery phase. How did we do that? Well, we did it in conjunction with the system users. And we're prioritizing against value. And that's where we're headed right now. It's taking those digital models, it's putting into place, identifying where the data is, how it can be combined to drive value, but also how we use standards to interoperate the data between different users. So a lot of the aspects that have been talked about in the digital twin work, from CDBB through the work that's been ongoing through the Open Networks projects on standards, is all being brought together to inform the approach to this project. And of course, it's not just about the digital twin, it's about the analysis of the data, it's about obtaining those data sources, and it's about creating meaningful visibility and meaningful insight on how to operate the network and how to do that economically and ultimately accelerate the integration of renewables and accelerate action on climate. So between Joe and I, questions? We stunned you into silence. So we've either been very, very good at communicating, or we've shocked you.
No question.
No question. Please.
techUK. I just have a question, I guess, on this kind of project, and great to see the work that you're doing in Wales. What has been kind of the biggest challenge or blocker to kind of achieving, as you mentioned, kind of the problem statement to getting this kind of rolling? Just kind of a top level, the biggest kind of blocker.
Do you want me to take that?
Yes, please. I can't think of any blockers.
I was going to say that. And one of the benefits we've had is the level of engagement from the stakeholders.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge at this stage, I don't think, has been technical.
Okay.
It's been getting into people's diaries.
Yeah.
And to get their input, because this is moving at pace. Discovery phase ran pretty much for 2 months with a month of write-up. We're now into a 6-month program overall that will have pretty much 4 months of technical delivery. When you're moving at that sort of pace and you need input from the number of stakeholders that we put up on that slide, coordinating how you adapt to get their input, potentially working bilaterally, but bringing everybody together and getting time in their diaries is a real challenge. So it's actually planning. It's the softer stuff, not the technical stuff. Although I'm sure the technical stuff will come through in this phase.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Thank you.